Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so here we go once again with a massive media Democrat-led gaslighting campaign. It's so obvious what they're trying to do. You know, clearly we're in uncharted territory here. Donald Trump's keeping us and frankly the whole world on its toes. And so you kind of expect things to be changing. The situation is extremely dynamic. And obviously the White House has pivoted. The focus has shifted, but really the end goal still remains. And the game is still on. But if you listen to the media, if you listen to the naysayers and the globalist cheerleaders, they're all jumping at this like a bunch of damn vultures, attempting to gaslight us with this narrative that Donald Trump somehow caved. He doesn't know what he's doing. He blinked. He's surrendered. Give me a frickin' break. And I'll tell you, one thing is obvious, and it's the same story as before. It's clear that they don't get it, or they don't want to get it. Donald Trump hasn't surrendered jack squat. He's simply adapting, realigning, and refocusing. And so let's have that conversation. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so it's obvious that all the people attempting to spin this narrative that Trump surrendered clearly are doing so for political reasons. You know, the truth of the matter is, Trump isn't some rigid ideologue. He's not somebody who's static or limited in his viewpoints. He doesn't have mega donors or lobbyists puppeteering his every move, keeping him locked in on a rail headed towards one direction. No, he's a dynamic businessman. He moves, he adapts, and evolves based on leverage, timing, and outcome. And that's what makes him an effective deal maker. Now, is there some truth to the statement that, yeah, there was some damage in the markets, and that probably played a role in putting a 90-day pause on the tariffs and reducing the majority of the tariffs down to a 10% baseline number? Absolutely, even he admits that.
You started the morning saying be cool, and just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents, they wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, you know, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also.
Absolutely, this had an impact in his decision, but the idea that Donald Trump saw a couple of red days in the markets, or certain CEOs panicking, and that's completely derailed his entire strategy and he's now given up is completely ridiculous. No, in fact, I think quite the opposite. He's doing what a good leader does. He's getting feedback and realizing what's going on, and then adapting from there. And it seems as though from the Trump administration's perspective, the implementation of intense tariffs over the last week, or at least the dangling of that tariff threat, has created enough movement for them in terms of negotiations for them to maybe ease a little bit from pressing down on the gas. You know, I'll repeat this again. It's exactly like I've been saying, this tariff strategy was never about permanent economic lockdown. It was never about tanking global trade just to watch the world burn. No, the Trump administration are using these tariffs as a leverage tool. The point is realignment and negotiation. The whole purpose is to keep people on their toes, forcing clarity and creating pressure. And now that the pressure has been applied and reactions have been observed, well, it seems the next phase begins.
How much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening with bonds? Is China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today, and all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. You might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate, things will turn out well. In terms of escalation, unfortunately, the biggest offender in the global trading system is China, and they're the only country who's escalated. And I can tell the rest of the world that, I'm not sure whether it was the prime minister or the economic minister in Spain made some comments this morning, oh, well, maybe we should align ourselves more with China. That would be cutting your own throat, because I can tell you that these Chinese exports that the U.S. tariff wall is going to keep out, that China, for all of you who can remember that Disney movie of the brooms carrying the buckets of water, that is a Chinese business model. It never stopped. They just keep producing and producing and dumping, and it's going somewhere. And I think at the end of the day, we can probably reach the ideal with our allies, with the other countries that have been long-term. They've been good military allies, not perfect economic allies, and then we can approach China as a group.
Exactly. It seems like this was step one: apply pressure globally, see who steps up in good faith, and of course see who doesn't. Reward those who negotiate fairly, and punish those who continue to play dirty. And that's really a key component here. That's exactly why we're seeing this 90-day reprieve for good faith actors. It's not a retreat, it was simply the first phase test. And now I think the target has been acquired because China once again has isolated themselves. They've proven to the world that they are the bad actor in the global economy. And it's funny because people are saying Trump back down. Did he really? I'm pretty sure China was always the number one target when it came to tariffs. I mean, we could go back to Donald Trump's first term in office. They've always been the key tariffs here. I mean, think about when Donald Trump initially slapped tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Remember what they were crying, right? How could he possibly be targeting us? He should be targeting China. Yeah, that's exactly the point. And so it seems there might actually be a secondary goal here. And I don't think this necessarily excludes the initial goal, because reciprocal trade, bringing jobs back to America, opening foreign markets, creating actual free trade globally, and reducing trade deficits is still part of the goal here. But I think another part of the strategy was rally the world against China's cheating, manipulation, trade practices. And this isn't just an American fight, it's a global one, and it also, frankly, should be a bipartisan issue. Which brings me to this press moment from yesterday morning.
Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they've been talking about tariffs for decades. How come when these Democrat elites want tariffs, everything's hunky-dory, but when President Trump wants tariffs, all hell breaks loose? Do you see this double standard?
I love this guy. Whoever the hell that is. I appreciate that question. No, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, see, just be cool. It's going to work out, and it's working out. Maybe faster than I thought. But I said it's going to take a little conditioning. It's a transition. I think it's a transition to greatness. Our country is going to be, there'll be nothing like it. And people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before. We have more car manufacturers, Roger, coming into our country now. Speaking of cars, we've never seen anything like it. And they're coming in because of the election. But they're coming in because of the tariffs, because they don't want to pay 25 or 50 or whatever it may be. They don't want to pay that. They can't pay that. We had 3 cancellations in Mexico, building a plant. They're all coming into the United States. Canada, they're coming in. From China, they're coming in from everywhere. And that's just cars. We have chip makers coming. We're the biggest chip maker in the world, from Taiwan, coming in, spending $3 billion to build plants, and mostly a big plant. This is a hell of a plant when you spend kind of money that they're going to go $300 billion. Apple is going to spend $500 billion building a plant. They wouldn't be doing that if I didn't do this. They'd just keep building them in China, and that's unsustainable. It's not a pleasant thing to do, but I appreciate the question. And, you know, interestingly, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, Crazy Nancy, they've wanted to do this for years, but they never had a president that had the guts to do it.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, the Democrats used to be aligned on this issue. What happened to that? You'd think they'd be ecstatic. I mean, supposedly they hate tariffs, right? Or they hate tariffs on America's supposed good trading partners. Well, the tariffs are gone. And historically, they've called for tariffs against China. So theoretically, I mean, Democrats got what they wanted, no? A pullback on the global tariffs. And now we're tackling the China issue. But if you listen to Democrats, Donald Trump caved and surrendered. And he's so incompetent and irresponsible. I mean, this should be bipartisan.
I tend to more agree with President Trump than I did with President Obama on Bush on trade. The whole idea for China manipulating their currency, I learned about them when I visited with Macney. I visited Crucible Steel here in Syracuse, and they were telling me back then how their steel products had an unfair advantage because China was manipulating its currency. That's how the whole issue came to the fore, because I happened to visit Crucible Steel back in 2004 or 5, sometime like that. So I hope he's really tough on China, on both North Korea, and on treating us fairly in terms of trade.
You know, Chuck Schumer used to get it, I guess before he got captured by the globalist donor class. But anyways, the point is, it seems the Trump administration made a play here to truly isolate China and possibly to create a real realignment here where foreign countries play right into his hand, and then possibly using that leverage to get America's foreign trading partners to rally against China. I think this chart really puts it all into visual perspective. China has isolated itself. Well, China and Canada, funnily enough, although not exactly surprising. And now, maybe, it's time to finally confront the giant Chinese elephant in the room.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. She can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
China manipulates their currency. They steal our intellectual property. They flood our universities and companies with spies who take our technology and innovation and then mass produce our tech for themselves. We got small companies and big companies who create new products, who patent those products, and then China just takes it, flagrant patent and copyright abuse, and then dumps those products into our markets. And guess what? You can't litigate in their courts. You can't fight them. They don't follow the rules. They don't play fair. They exploit the WTO. Bill Clinton allowed them in the World Trade Organization, and when you're part of the WTO, you're supposed to abide by certain standards, but they don't seem to freaking give a crap. They're bad faith actors. And now they're doing it again in this tariff situation. Instead of coming to negotiate, they're dumping bonds. They're slapping retaliatory tariffs. And Donald Trump has totally exposed them. And he's brought these issues to the forefront. And the best part is, now after exposing them, and now engaging in phase 2 of his strategy, well, we're going to start seeing which countries are on the side of America and which countries are going to align themselves with China. They're telling you Trump's a coward, but what Trump is doing right now takes frickin' balls. This whole thing has been a courageous economic crusade that no other politician would ever step close to, and it continues. He didn't cave, he didn't lose, he didn't give up, he didn't surrender. He repositioned. He's keeping the 10% baseline tariff in place while simply granting a 90-day reprieve to reward good faith cooperation. Meanwhile, the campaign is still active, the leverage is still very much real. Let me tell you, foreign nations might be breathing a temporary sigh of relief, but it is very much temporary, and he's now zeroed in on the ultimate abuser, China.
China, 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 China.
And I think the rest of the world is starting to see that, despite the story that the media is trying to spin. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's copium, but I think there's method to the madness, and I guess, like usual, time will tell. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.